Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are in the country. Thanks for joining us for our MBAs of Impact digital event. I'm your host, Fanae Croft. I'm the Field Marketing Manager for the Americas region here at the Graduate Management Admission Council. To give you a little insight, I know that you think about us, you think about the GMAT exam, but we're actually a council of business schools. And with that, our purpose is to ensure that talent never goes undiscovered. And as you may or may not know, the U.S. demographics are shifting, and very soon we'll be a majority minority-run nation. With this, the number of underrepresented minority candidates in the business school pipeline isn't following suit with that number. And it's really important for U.S. business schools to make sure that the landscape in the business school matches that of our nation and who we are. To give you some more insight, I might use the word underrepresented minority throughout this event. Underrepresented minorities as it relates to business school are African Americans, Hispanics, and Native American, as they under-indexed in the business school pipeline overall. So with this, schools are having a challenging time attracting URM candidates, and that's for various reasons. We've done a lot of research. Some of our research indicates that many URM candidates don't feel that business is for them. They don't see people like them represented in the business world. Or it could be they don't have access to enough people who have navigated the path before them to really know the benefits of it or understand the value of the MBA. For all of the above mentioned reasons, our motivation for this series. So with MBAs of Impact, throughout this series, we have this event now, we'll have a few more coming up throughout the year. We're highlighting MBAs of color who found success with the MBA, but most importantly, they did it their own way. So whether it is that they rose through the ranks and they've made it to the C-suite, or they're in the tech field. We have a millennial on deck who has done some cool things with startups and Facebook and some things like that. But today I'm super excited. We have Jessica Lane Alexander. Now she's a Kellogg MBA, but she's also a digital and social media maven and continues to rise in the media and entertainment industry. What I love most about Jessica, though, is that she worked her way up through the traditional marketing ranks, but she stayed true to who she is and what she really wants out of life, what's important to her, and ultimately just what she's into. So we're going to chat with her today. You can expect that we'll chat, let's say 20 to 30 minutes. We'll have a conversation, but then we also want to have your questions answered because ultimately that's the point, for you to have access to people like her, get some insight on what her experience is, and ask any questions that you might have. So if you can post your questions to the comment section as they come up, we'll chat a bit. And like I said, we'll address your questions towards the end of the hangout. We got about 45 minutes to chat. So with that, I want to jump right into it. Jessica, thank you for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So can you start us off and just tell everyone, first of all, a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you are, that type of thing?
For sure. So again, my name is Jessica Lane Alexander. I am Director of Digital and Social Media here at TV One. And so what that entails, that it really is about all the world of the digital and social platforms. So everything from TV1.tv to our social channels across Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as well as our TV Everywhere app. And so under my team is really the creators, the strategy mavens behind all the digital and social content. So from sun up to sundown, we're thinking about what type of content that originates on TV One that we can also share out to our digital fans. So we're about building an audience fan base for our networks, but we're also trying to create some original content at the same time.
Nice. Okay, that sounds exciting. I want to do it.
It's my time.
Tell me what's a day in the life like of Jessica Lane Alexander at TV One?
So a day in the life at TV One, it's funny because it's kind of hectic. And I joke with my husband because my husband calls me. He's like, oh, so what are you doing today? And I'm like, oh, just looking at some videos, like scrolling the internet. And he's like, oh, really?
Right.
Like, yeah.
Doing work, doing that?
Exactly. Because I feel like about almost 60% or so of my time that I spend really on our website. So on TV1.tv. but as well as on our kind of competitors in the space's websites too. So we want to figure out what's being talked about in the space. We want to jump on it, and then we want to create original content around the space. So that's kind of from an editorial perspective. From a digital marketing perspective, we also want to take a look at content that we're creating to advertise some of our shows. And we also are seeing who is interacting with that content, how popular that's doing, what are the kind of the metrics around that, and also how can we optimize some of that content on the fly. So it's constantly looking and checking out blogs. Shade Room is a favorite of ours. The Root is a favorite of ours. So we go on all these platforms just to see what's happening in the space. And for the space, I guess I should be a little bit more specific. We focus on African-American content here, and our target audience is African-American women. So we're trying to understand what the African-American woman around 35 to 45 is interested in, what she's reading, what she's watching, and also kind of what just is circulating in that space.
Wow, I love that. So I follow the Shade Room also. And I love when I see networks and brands make comments on the post. It's just so right now. So now I see that's you in there, figuring out what's going on and putting your posts in. Okay.
For sure.
So let's take a step back. What were you doing before you got to business school? What was your career then?
Yeah, so fortunately, I have always been kind of in the media entertainment space. So prior to TV1 and prior to business school, I was actually at TBS and TNT in the Turner broadcasting world. And so for there, I also was in television, and I also was in television marketing. I started off in television marketing kind of more broadly. When I first got there, I actually got there as an intern and kind of worked my way up to eventually kind of being a manager when I left before going to business school. But I started looking at the 360-degree marketing space. So everything from including digital and social, but also print, on-air, radio, out of home, kind of on the ground experiential marketing. And so when I started, I kind of did it all. And then as as time started to progress, and also as I looked at the landscape, I realized digital and social started to become something that we never talked about to something that we were always talking about. And so it just so happened it was something I was interested in, and it was something that we were at the time at TBS and TNT, we were trying to figure it out. So I stepped up, raised my hand and said, hey, I'm willing to figure this out and figure out how we can kind of incorporate that into our daily marketing processes. And so because of that, I kind of got branded the digital and social person. And so that was like my area of expertise at TBS and TNT. And so that turned into kind of a different role where I left as an interactive marketing manager. And so then I only focused on the digital and social platforms for TBS and TNT, and also what does digital marketing and what does building a fan base look like for those platforms and for those brands. And so that's what I did prior to business school. And then my transition into business school, I loved what I did. I didn't necessarily want to change, but I also recognized in the television space, a lot of the marketing that we did was very promotional based. It was very creative based. And I felt like I was lacking some of those analytical kind of quantity skills that I felt like that was going to take me to the next level of management. And so that was my goal in going back to business school. It's like, what's a quick way to get those skills and I can get them fast and easy? And I think that that's going to elevate me or propel me to the next stage of my career. And so that's why I ended up choosing the business school route.
Interesting. Okay. So was it more you're in your field, you're just trying to figure out how to level up, and then you thought, oh, business school? Or were there people around you who were already getting the MBA that kind of planted that seed or helped to really like solidify that decision?
Yeah, so it's interesting because in the television and entertainment space, there are not, well, I will say there are not a lot of MBAs. There actually are a lot of MBAs, but it's not really talked about. So, I feel like if you're going to a finance world or you're going to the consulting world, it's very much like a open thing. They're encouraging like, yeah, you need business school. You have to go to business school. And on the media side, it's just not like that. No one's really talking about business school. No one's like, oh, this is something you have to do. But I saw that the skill set, I started to look around. I started to look at the people who were leading the organizations, kind of leading the charge all around me. And I realized they had a skill set that I didn't have. And part of that skill set and where they grew it was business school. So they didn't really talk about their business school and they didn't talk about kind of that transition, but they had it. And so that's what kind of got me interested. Like, if I want to be like them and I want to take on the leadership positions that they have, I need a similar skill set. And that's how I really started to get interested in business school. And then on the other hand, so I talked about my husband, he comes back into this story because he is a consultant. And so before we were married, he was talking about business school. And so I kind of got it from both sides. And I'm like, okay, the fact that I'm hearing it here and here is a good sign in terms of I should start exploring this and seeing, is this something that, one, that I would be interested in, one, that I could do, and three, could I actually get in, which is always the big question mark when you're talking about business school.
Absolutely. So you mentioned skills, that the skills you needed to go further in your career that you felt like business school could offer. What were some of the, I guess, most impactful like courses and things like that that you feel like really helped? Because you already had a lot of experience in marketing.
Mm-hmm. So it's funny because especially as we're kind of talking about this process, and I'm remembering what I said before business school, and now I'm like reflecting on what what life is like post business school. And you know, of course, going in, I was like, you know, as I said, I wanted these quant skills, I wanted all these analytical things. So I was like going to do all these classes around quant and analytics. And now post business school, the things that I feel like mattered the most are none of those classes. So it worked out that, so especially at Kellogg, we have a lot of, and I feel like most business schools, we have a lot of classes. At Kellogg, it was called Management and Organizational Strategy. But there are a lot of leadership-based classes where they talk through how to build teams, how to be, what type of leader you should be, or what type of leader feels natural to you and your personality, and then what type of leader is going to drive results. And how do you become that leader? And then how do you also empower others? And also a lot of kind of strategy around, at the end of the day, at any company you work with, you got to work with people to get stuff done. And that sometimes is the challenging part. You can be super smart, you can know everything, but if you can't work with people, and you can't work with people to create a vision and then get a vision actually completed, you kind of fail in your job, and you definitely don't take it to the next level. And so it was those classes. And one of them, I'm trying to remember exactly what one of the classes was called. One of them that I think was super kind of inspirational for me was, it was called Value-Based Leadership. And it talked about, one, what values you have, what values people feel like are motivating and inspirational, and how do you kind of combine those, what you have versus what is going to work to be a leader that's really going to be successful in driving change in the organization. And it was those classes to me that really made the difference. The ones that I kind of remember and think about day to day. Not stat, we had one that was like decision analytics and decision modeling, not that, not operations, but it was like those classes, like those value-based leadership classes. Those are the ones that I constantly think about and remind myself, oh yeah, what would be the right way to approach this problem? So that's what I feel like was most valuable.
What I love about what you're saying is that I think some people who, let's say they're in a different industry or function, and they may think, okay, I want to switch careers, get more into management or what have you. Right. Then the light bulb goes off, maybe I should get an MBA. But often people who already have that background in business, it's often thought, well, what do I need that for? Or how will it really help me? So I think it's really keen that you're giving some insight on that, specifically being in marketing and then staying in marketing, but still feeling that business school was valuable and you were able to gain things like being able to get the job done, forward your ideas, things like that you really don't even think about or consider. So I think that's really key. But I do want to say, so while you were in business school, did the thought ever cross your mind to switch gears, to get into something else, or you were just like focused on the path ahead?
Well, I feel like I might be a little unique in the scenario where I was pretty focused. Like I came from a background in media entertainment, and I knew I wanted to stay in media and entertainment. But I will say that I think it is a perfect opportunity for you to switch gears. So I switched gears in the sense that I wanted to do more technology, including I wanted to combine my skills of entertainment, pop culture, kind of this buzz building background that I had. And I wanted to mix that or infuse that with technology and kind of take technology and the skills I already had and go to the next level. So a slight pivot, but I do have plenty of friends who went from engineer to brand management, or consulting to finance, or consulting to tech. So I think it's a perfect opportunity for you to really completely switch gears. The only advice I would have, a recommendation, is business school is super short. It's only 2 years. So if you do want to switch gears, I would recommend that you come in kind of already knowing where you want to go. So I know I noticed a lot of first years, especially some of my friends, they kind of floundered a little bit when there's so many options out there. When you get there, everyone is like, oh, come work for me and come work for me. And so if you don't have a clearer sense of what you want to do, what interests you, and where you want to go, it's easy to be persuaded like, oh, consultant is going to like, oh yeah, here's our sign up. This is what our career path looks like. So it's easy to, I would say, get persuaded to go to the loudest voice. And you have to always remember what your voice is and what you're interested in and what you're passionate in as you kind of progress through business school, because you can get sidetracked very easily.
Yeah, I think you're a great example of that too, because oftentimes when people think about business school, they think consultant, like you said, or Wall Street type executive, stuffy suit buttoned up.
For sure.
Sitting there with your twist out and a floor shirt at TV1.
That's so not me.
But you figured out what you wanted to do and how the MBA could get you there. So I love that. But I do want to take a step back, because you mentioned about basically knowing where you're going so that you don't get lost in the storm. Or so how did you figure out where to start?
So I would say where to start. That's a good question. Honestly, part of the business school application process is a great way you're going to start to figure it out as you go through that application process, because the essays require you to figure out what you're good at, and you have to talk about what you're good at, and you have to make other people believe that you're actually good at it. And then you have to also talk about what your pathway is and how you kind of want to get there. So that's a good place to get it all organized and get that story organized before you go to business school. Prior to then, I definitely recommend doing a lot of fact finding. Talk about, come up with a list. I kind of had a list of 5 companies or list of 5 positions that you feel like look interesting to you, and start to research what are the people who are in those positions, what do their backgrounds look like, what are those jobs look like, and start to really tease out what stuff fits your personality, what stuff fits your skill set, and then also where are those gaps, and where can business school kind of come in, supplement that to get you to whatever that dream on that list of 5, whatever that dream goal looks like. So I would say you really have to talk to people, talk to other business school people, talk to people in jobs you like, that you feel like you like and you enjoy. Because the funny thing that happens is when you start to explore that, you start to realize, maybe not. Maybe I don't really want to do that. So, but you need the good part and you need that bad part to really figure out where you want to go. So I highly advocate talk to as many people as you can who have business school degrees, business school backgrounds, and people who just are in jobs you like.
Okay. I know a lot of people work with organizations. Did you work with any organizations to help you navigate the process?
So I did not. So I have a funny story to tell. It's a very humbling story, especially now that I am past the business school process. I really wanted to do MLT. I want to say it's management leadership for tomorrow. And I didn't get in. And so this was before the business school process. And my thought was, I'm going to join this organization. It's going to help me kind of walk through this process. And then I got a real bold realization that I cannot do this program because I didn't get in. And I want to say that was like a lightning rod, because I realized that the path from interest to actually getting in, it's a long journey. But if you're committed to it, you can make it through from the start to finish. And so once I realized that I did not get in there, I started to examine what I needed to do to improve my resume, my background, my GMAT scores, even my story, to make sure that, I didn't get into there, but I want to make sure that I do get into business school. And so that's kind of what really jump started me digging down to say, hey, I need to get this together, because I know I can do it. And I know this is what I want to do, but I need to make sure I have my story tight so they know how tight I am and what I want to do, and make sure they know that I'm a fit for business school. So that just goes to be said that there definitely will be bumps along the road, but you have to stick to it, and you have to figure out how to get over, under, around, step on the obstacles, whatever you got to do to just kind of knock them out the way, because they will come and they will surprise you. Yep.
I love that. Yeah. I meet people all the time on the road. I do events or conferences, specifically when they're minority focused. And so you have the people who they get into the MLT or they work with the consortium or whoever. And then you have the folks that don't. And then there's always this level of trepidation. But I love what you're saying. I mean, I wish I could take you with me, but you're busy. To just say, like, you have to keep going, really focused, and not think about any of the steps in the process as a barrier, but more of a challenge. Is about how to figure it out, and how to position yourself so that, to your point, you said, I'm tight and I need them to see that I'm tight.
Right.
And there are many different ways to do that. And it's really about just enlisting the help that you need to make that happen. So I love that. What'd you feel about the GMAT? What's your advice?
I'm laughing because me and the GMAT, oh man. I'm glad to be done. I'll just say that. So I would say the biggest advice I have about the GMAT is get help early, often, in the middle, towards the end. Like, just keep getting help. School has never necessarily been a challenge to me, but standardized tests like the GMAT have always been a challenge for me. And I knew that going in. And I called myself, I'm going to take, they have the prep classes. Mm-hmm. And, you spend this money on the prep classes. In the end, I got a private tutor, and that's what took me over the edge. And I wish, in hindsight, someone would have told me, just get the private tutor up front and then save yourself some money and then depend on that person to help get you over the edge. Yeah. So my number one recommendation, if you at all feel like standardized tests are a challenge or, you're just unfamiliar with it, you got to get the help. I definitely don't recommend buying a book and just sitting with yourself trying to figure it out. You waste a lot of time. You can waste a lot of money in my case. Just get the help, the right help that you need, and get it early enough that it doesn't feel like such a burden to kind of go through the GMAT. Because I had friends who it was not a burden for them. And I look at them compared to my story and I'm like, wow, I think I should have done it that way. Yeah. So yes, get help, get help, get help.
So listen to Jessica, everyone, when she says get help. And what I love about what she's saying is to describe something as getting help means it's doable and it's something you can accomplish. You just need to figure out how. And I think what happens, people psych themselves out with this exam, or either they don't put in the level of preparation that's necessary. And I like to tell everyone, just be ready. It's going to be hard. Yes. If you're doing great, it's going to be hard. Because that's the way the exam is designed. The better you're doing, the harder it gets. That's another conversation. In August, we have a understanding and preparing for the GMAT session. So if you're interested in that, please join. But you'll learn more about how the exam is designed. But ultimately, it's not a barrier. It's something that you can figure out. You just got to figure out what you need. What Jessica needed was a tutor to help her specifically address her issues or concerns. Might be different for you, but it's really going to be important to sit with yourself, get that understanding of what you need, and then just do it. Look at it as a task and complete it versus this is the thing that I need to just stay away. But going back to business school, so you got in, you got the GMAT. What was your experience like? Like, how did you find your tribe? People say it's not for people like me. What was your experience?
So I would say my experience, I had a great time at business school. And I think I'm glad that you mentioned finding your tribe, because that's what's key for it. So of course you come to business school and a lot of people tell you business school is all about the networking. Of course it's about the class, but it's also about the networking. And that's true. But you can spend a lot of time, and you should network, but you can spend a lot of time kind of getting reach and getting broad networking, but not a lot of depth. And I will say what is going to get you through day to day, because business school can be hard, is kind of the depth and the relations that you create. You need friends and you need to find your tribe. You need people who you can depend on, because even though you're in business school, I feel like unlike undergrad where you're kind of like in this bubble and you feel like, you're 18, 19, 20, you're in a bubble, nothing really affects you. You can really focus in on just school. When you get into business school, sure, it's full time, but you're also an adult. So real life happens. Like, you lose internships, you lose jobs, sometimes you lose people. Things happen in your life that you need to be able to have someone still in the business school environment that you can go to that can help you and that supports you from start to finish. And you need that. So I would recommend that you go in you go in to meet people and to network, but you also go in to try to find a few good friends that you can say that you can count on and you can depend on as you go through this tumultuous process. And also because, it is a way to kind of expand your network, because you could be good friends with someone who is not in your section, not in any of your groups, and they can introduce you to their section and their groups. And it's a great way to meet other people and to get exposed to other people. But I would say the best things to approach are have a good tribe, get your classes in early, and also figure out a way to tackle hard classes, homework assignments, because the challenging things will come, and you gotta have to have a process or a technique you can apply to each class, each hard class, especially to how to get through that, whether it's talking to teachers, whether it's office hours, whether it's tutoring. The theme I feel like of all of business school is get help and use your resources wisely. And there are tons and tons of resources and tons of willing people who want to help you get to the next step. Because after you pay all that money for business school, they want you to finish and they want you to do great. And they take their time out for you to help you and to make you great. But you have to also step up and devote time to reaching out to them and asking for help when you need to. So again, ask for help in business school, and then really look out for each other and find people who look out for you.
Okay. What was your biggest challenge you had to overcome and or reward?
I would say, well, the biggest challenge was probably getting in. Definitely before business school. So I feel like I have two challenges. Before business school was definitely getting in. And I will say, like, again, going back to when I didn't get into the MLT program, which a lot of people kind of coming in my year were in, that was a challenge. And it really, at the time, it really made me like, is this for me? Should I be doing this? Like, I had a lot of self-doubt in terms of, if I can't even get into this organization, what makes me think that I can get into business school? And so I had a lot of those questions. And so getting over that, and then getting over the GMAT and actually getting in, I like the time when because they actually call you and tell you, oh, you got in. And I remember just being amazed and shocked. Like, even though I knew I worked hard, but shocked that I'm actually past this process and someone's going to let me into their business school to like achieve and get a higher level degree. So that was kind of like the biggest challenge to overcome, that I would say before business school. And I would say after business school, one of the bigger kind of career challenges was when I first got out of business school, I landed into a job that I didn't feel like I worked all this hard to figure out the right place to be. And I got there and I was like, this is not the right place to be. This is not where I want to be. So I was kind of one of those people that finished business school, got my job, and realized, this is not going to work. And so I had to dealing with that, that setback to, you work so hard to get this, and you all will see when you get there, you're working hard to get the internship, and then you're working hard to get the final offer. And you get your final offer and you think, oh, this is going to be marvelous. I got this offer. I'm all set. I can just chill all summer. And then I get to the job and I'm like, oh my God, I think this is a mistake. Dealing with that realization that it's a mistake, and then also knowing, unfortunately, I knew very early on that this was not a fit, and you kind of have to grin and bear it, because you can't just leave a job in 2 weeks. Like, you have to figure it, you have to stick with it, and you have to figure it out. And so that was kind of an interesting process to understand, to still work hard and still say, because you want people, no matter what job you're in, if it doesn't fit or if it fits, you want people to still say, she showed up and she did an amazing job, and I would recommend her for anything else she wants to do. So I had to still do that, even though it was something I was not interested in, I didn't feel like was a great fit. And then I also had to figure out, well, what is a good fit? How do I get out of this scenario? How do I turn this into something that is going to work for me? And so that was quite the challenge as well, to figure out how to reroute from that scenario when it wasn't working. Wow.
Well, here you are today.
Right? And I am a good fit now.
We have those setbacks, and then here you are. So it all worked out in the order that it should have. So tell us how you got to where you are today. How did you become who you are, where you are?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So as I started to, piggybacking on what I was saying in terms of figuring out that this wasn't the right space, and then trying to figure out how to get back to the right space, as I started to, it's kind of like I feel like I started the process all over again in terms of my list of jobs that I thought were super interesting, that were my ideal. I started to kind of do network and to have conversation with people about the jobs that I was interested in, and just try to figure out, well, who are those people? How do I meet the right people who can kind of usher me in into that job or that space? And especially because of the entertainment world, I feel like people rarely ever get jobs from applying on a job board. It's usually a question of, oh, who do you know? Who can recommend you? Who gets you past that job application barrier to the actual hiring manager. And so my goal was to try to figure out who could get me to that hiring manager for the jobs I was interested in. And so it took me quite a while. So I was applying and I was talking to people, and it just so happened that my old boss, prior to going to business school, she got a new role at TV1. And so she became the head of marketing, which included consumer marketing, on air, and the digital and social media space. She just got this job, and I was happened to be talking to her about, what was going on and how I was looking for a new role. And she was like, well, actually, I need help.
Oh, perfect.
Right. And so I feel like it kind of came to be magically almost. It's like I would just have to be talking to her randomly. And at this point, I was actually pretty frustrated with the process. So I'm like, I'm doing all these things and it's not kind of like, nothing is kind of like hitting off. And so I was really frustrated. I'm talking to her and she was like, well, I actually might have an opportunity. It's not available yet, but I know that I need help in the digital and social space. And she also came from, of course, the Turner world, and she knew how important digital and social was to television marketing and just to any brand of entertainment at this day and age. And she was like, the network has to figure it out, and it has to grow its digital and social audience. And she was like, I think that you can come in and do it. And I was like, well, I think I can come in and do it too. You just watch, you just wait.
Yeah.
And so it just so happened I applied. I actually I came up with a overall like strategy and approach. So when I came to talk to her, I was like, okay, this is what I see as the vision for digital and social for TV1. If you hire me, if I can come in, I want to do X, Y, and Z things in like the first 90 days. This is what kind of road marks and the milestones that I want to hit. So I came with my whole little plan of how I saw that TV1 digital and social platforms could kind of grow and evolve and basically talk to their audience in a new and different way. And so that's how it happened. I came in, I gave my pitch, I gave it to her, and then the president of TV1, and that's how I kind of got here. And so I've been rocking ever since.
Awesome. That's when preparation meets opportunity.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay. I actually have a ton more questions, but we have questions coming in, and we got about 13 minutes left. So let's start chatting with our audience a bit.
Okay.
If we've addressed some of these, then we'll keep going.
Okay.
So we have a question from Nick says, "Go Cats."
Woo!
Jasmine is asking, she says, for a young marketing professional aspiring to work in the media and entertainment industry, what advice could you provide, being that this industry is extremely tough to break into? And I think it piggybacks on what you were just saying, but if you have any additional info to add, that'd be great.
Yeah, I do think business school is a great way to pivot into the media entertainment space. I think for sure it's doable, because I feel like people will tell you and you will feel like it's not doable. But I had friends who came in as something totally random and they left with jobs in the entertainment space. So it's totally doable. I will say you have to be that networking thing. You got to be really diligent about that. And you have to also, again, come in knowing I want to be in the entertainment space and start with day one, figuring out what are the alums in the entertainment space that you can reach out to and you can talk to. For us at Kellogg, we had it was a media entertainment club. So that was one area where you end up networking, kind of peer networking with other people who are also trying to do the exact same thing, so they can support you. And when they find something, they can share it with you. And when you find something, you can share it with them. The career services it was like a media entertainment trek almost, where you go and you can talk to companies will present to you and present to really all of the business schools, kind of make a trip to either New York or LA, the ones that have kids that are interested in media entertainment. So when you see those opportunities, you definitely have to jump on those. But at the end of the day, it's really about networking, finding those opportunities, and kind of staying consistent with talking to people in that space, because you can definitely get in there, but you have to know when those opportunities arise. And you only really know by talking to those alum and talking to people who are close with the school, who are in the media entertainment space.
Okay. Samantha's asking if you could talk about what recruiting was like at in your program, and is there anything you wish you would have done differently to manage that aspect of business school?
I think yes, there is. I feel like there always are. There always are hindsight moments. For sure, I think so. There's two paths in recruiting. I feel like for most schools, there's kind of the on-campus recruiting path, where a lot of the big companies will come in and they'll say, I have X many roles for MBA students. So like big companies, like all the consulting companies do it that way. Some of the finance companies do it that way. For Kellogg, all the CPG companies do it that way. And now a lot of the tech companies will do it that way. Microsoft, Google, Amazon will say, we have 10, 20, how many jobs, and we want your students to fill in for them. And then there's the other side of recruiting where it's a little bit on your own and they won't come with a job. No one will come and say, I had 5 jobs, but the jobs will be there and the jobs will really depend on you to find the opportunities. And it's interesting because if you're in a space that is kind of like media entertainment, there are some other places too, or social impact and all of these spaces that you don't think of for MBAs, those where those jobs live. And those jobs will be so much harder to get, but the jobs will actually, when you actually get the jobs, they're much more interesting if that makes sense. So especially if you come in thinking like me, I want to do X, Y, and Z, you kind of got to go that non-traditional off-campus recruiting route, but you're going to be so much happier that you stick to the course and found the job here. So in hindsight, I did do a lot of the on-campus stuff. And I think in hindsight, I would have done a lot more of the off-campus recruiting for both internships and for the full-time position, to really find something instead of finding when on-campus recruiting, they say, I have this job. Can you fit into this mold? And that's not a bad thing, especially if you really want to do that. But when you go off campus, you say, I'm looking for this job. How can I find a job that looks like this? Exactly what you want. And I feel like they're both equivalent. There's not one thing better than the other. But if you have specific needs, they're probably not going to be met when they give you this is what it is, take it or leave it. And so that's sometimes the challenge because they're both hard, but this is a little bit easier to do than some of the off-campus recruiting. And I think I would have leaned into more off-campus recruiting opportunities, hindsight being 2020.
Okay. Maya's asking if there is any advice. What's your best advice for applying specifically to Kellogg?
Specifically to Kellogg, I will say, of course, I mean, they want to have, they want you to have a strong resume, strong scores. But I think Kellogg is really interested in seeing your personality and making sure that you're a good fit for Kellogg. And so I think that they, more than a lot of other schools, value you telling your story in a unique way. I think that I'm trying to remember, I know once upon a time they still did a video essay in terms of a video essay that had to accompany your application and not just written. So they really want to know who you are. And they want you to go out of your way to show who you are. So I feel like sometimes we're afraid to add extra personality, add extra, well, I really am this into like our authentic selves, into our applications, into some of the projects that we work on. But I think Kellogg really appreciates that. So I think that you should, of course, do everything that you would do for all the other schools, but for Kellogg specifically, find a way to tell you a unique story about yourself, a story that epitomizes who you are.
Is there anything unique about the culture at Kellogg that you think maybe sets it apart from other programs?
I do, and I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to describe it because Kellogg can be a very unique place. It's super social, so like it's very much built on, not only classes but lots of activities, start to finish. So we start off with, they call it Quest, which is basically you choose a trip and you go with 10 other people and y'all spend a week together. You basically spend a week with strangers, and the goal is you start off with strangers and you leave as friends. And that's your introduction to Kellogg. And I think that kind of epitomizes the Kellogg environment. They want you to talk to each other. They want you all to be friends. They want you all to create connections with each other. So it's really dependent upon you to, I don't want to say be social because that's not the right word, because I don't think Kellogg is just for extroverts. But it does depend on you on putting yourself out there to meet people, to try to talk to people, and to understand people of different backgrounds. So you do have to have that kind of spirit of, I'm going to take a step and put myself out there in a way that I don't know that a lot of schools say this is the absolute requirement for you to be successful at their school.
Another specific Kellogg question. Were you involved in any programs or clubs?
I was. So I'm trying to think. So I was in Media Entertainment Club. So I was the president of the Media Entertainment Club for my second year, which also ended up, well, I'll say this because in terms of financial investment and financial opportunities to help finance your education, through my work with the Media Entertainment Club, I actually ended up applying to a fellowship for media entertainment because Kellogg had a media entertainment fellowship and got a half-year scholarship. So second year was completely paid for, which was awesome and amazing. And I kind of credit that with some of the work with the Media Entertainment Club. So Media Entertainment Club was definitely a passion project of mine. I was in the Black Management Association, and so I was on their conference team. So I was the speakers lead for the conference team. So I was responsible for getting all the speakers in for our Black Management Association kind of annual convention or conference. What else did I do? I did a dance group because I grew up a dancer. I still dance sometimes when I'm not busy. So I was in a ballroom dance group at Kellogg as well. So you got to get some fun stuff in there too.
Okay. Fun. So you handled your business, but then, you still enriched yourself while you were there.
Which is super important. That was such a nice way to put it. I enriched myself.
Yeah. You got to make sure you're in there and you're addressing that. And I love how you've navigated this all. Question: is it recommended to apply to business school right after completing a bachelor's degree?
I would say probably not. It depends on. I mean, it varies, but I feel like for some of the top business schools, they really want you to have working experience. And honestly, it's going to be a better experience for you if you have working experience. But that being said, I would say try to do the GMAT as close to when you graduate undergrad as possible, because you're just still in that school mode. And I feel like studying for another test close to when you graduated undergrad is probably recommended, because I'm not sure what's the years of eligibility for your GMAT scores at this point. But I would do that early, but I would wait a little bit to apply to business school.
I would echo everything that Jessica says about that. There are programs that you can apply to as an undergraduate, but to our point, many of the top programs do want you to come in with that experience so that you can contribute to the conversation, to your program with the experiences that you have. That GMAT, doing it early and getting it out the way, it's valid for 5 years, is always recommended. So if you're thinking that there's even a chance you're going to do business school in the future, go ahead and do it now. Quick question about financial aid or assistance. Did you have any of that? Was any of that available to you for your business school experience?
Yeah, so a lot of it is these loans, but no, just joking. So I definitely had loans. So that's a big, well, I will say the loans. Let me start by saying the loans are never as bad as you think. So loans definitely helped me through the experience. Again, I mentioned earlier the scholarship or the fellowship that I got that covered a full year of tuition. So that helped. And there were also a few other scholarships that I received just within, like when you apply for financial aid and you apply for for your programs, you also just get scholarships based on, your story, your background. So I got a few of those. But a lot of it was paid through loans, and a lot of it I'm still paying on. But I will say that for a lot of people think that the loans are not a big deal, or that they are sizable and that they will affect you for years down the line. But I will say, unlike your undergraduate loans, when you're graduating business school, you're going to graduate with a top job that's going to make you 6 figures plus. And you're always going to make 6 figures plus after you graduate from a top business school. So the loans, you think, before you get there, you think of them as big and large, and how am I ever going to pay these off? And then you graduate and you realize you get a signing bonus, and you realize you have this great job, and you're like, oh, that's what they were talking about. I really can afford to pay these loans, so it's no issue.
Yeah. ROI is still seeming like a win, huh?
Yes, absolutely.
I got an interesting question. We're almost out of time, and we still have other questions that I apologize if we can't get to them all. I tried to answer as many that speak to the most candidates as possible. There's an interesting question here about seeming like you've made it to a great place professionally. Have you ever experienced any microaggressions as it relates to about having an advanced degree? Did they ever get in the way of any projects that you were on, or any team environments?
I will say, so I'm trying to approach this. So I will say yes. I did feel like And this in TV1, not as much, because TV1 is focused on promoting African Americans and the African American experience. But in the job prior, I would say definitely. And it's subtle. It's so subtle. It is so subtle that you could miss it. But in terms of the experiences that you have, but I will say that I found myself having to, and luckily I did have the business school background. I went to Northwestern undergrad and I went to Northwestern Business School. So they had to believe me when I said, hey, I got it. Like, I belong here. I deserve to be here. And so the great part is sometimes you do have to show up with your kind of credentials on your sleeve and kind of let people know. And I know it feels, especially for me, that feels like icky. Like, why do I have to show up and tell them all about, like, oh, I did X, Y, and Z stuff and I did all these things. Like, why can't I just be me? And so that doesn't feel that authentic to me. But I know that when I showed up and I told you, and you announce your story and you say your background, oh, I came from blah, blah, blah. I just graduated this business school. It gives you a different type of experience with people in the teams than if you just come in and just introduce yourself and you say, hey, you know, and just keep it moving. And I did find myself having to prove, one, especially because it was in the tech field, one, as a woman, to kind of prove that I belong to be here. I have as much experience, or it might be a different experience, but I have as much experience as you as a woman, and then also kind of as a Black woman too. And I realized I kind of had to show up with my credentials on my sleeve, and it is what it is. Yeah. But it's the way to tackle it, and it's a way to kind of dead all the conversations around whether you belong here or not. And, of course, and I come in because I have big hair, Black woman, I have big hair, it's just especially because I'm usually a loud talker as well. And you go sometimes in tech environments, everyone's kind of in their computers and tooling around. And that's just not me. And people put a type of, this is how this person is or what this person should do. But then I kind of shake them up when I then say the background in terms of, oh, well, I actually went to Northwestern, and I went to Northwestern, and all these type of things. And so it gives them a different type of, yeah. And sometimes that's all you need to just take the next step to work with people and for them to give you the benefit of the doubt. Once they say, they know now it's on you to show in your work, and you get the same kind of fair, level playing field to say that, no, if I show up and I do exactly what I'm supposed to do and kind of exceed what I'm supposed to do, you're going to have a different experience with them, if that makes sense.
No, I love that. Basically, it sounds like you're saying own it. It could happen, but own it and play all the cards that you have.
For sure.
So we gotta go. We're 2 minutes over, but I want to thank you so much. I think you're a great representation of the MBA, and you truly show that you did it your way. And I hope that everyone watching can get some inspiration from that, figure out where you want to go, and know that the MBA can be for you, and you really can make it your own. Jessica is a living example of that.
For sure.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Thank you. Best of luck on your journey, and have an awesome day.
Thank you. You too. And everyone else have an awesome day.
Okay.